silver screen. Kevin and Tom and Joe know all there is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, this is Real Spoilers, episode 774. Iron Claw, I got nothing.
Fine.
White Claw.
Yeah, well, knowing this family.
They are pretty white.
Yeah.
So, what's left of them? So, the first
Spoilers.
this will be the first synopsis you've ever done where you shouldn't need notes.
I don't need anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This is the first time you could do a synopsis without having seen the movie.
Oh, I could.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But Joe came in with his huge legal
I
pad
know.
full.
He's been waiting for this day.
This must be what it feels like when we do musicals for you guys.
No,
this is-
we like musicals, but
This
we're not
is-
like it's not wrestling for us.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Maybe-
What is your wrestling?
The Monkeys.
Yeah.
Oh, right on. What's yours?
Hackers, maybe?
Interesting. Okay.
I love that movie.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah, but you don't have like.
Yeah, but you're not like
That's true.
a hacker.
I don't have anything. I don't really have a thing. I don't
Well,
think.
this took
Video
a-
games. I like video games.
Okay, that makes-
I don't get
that's
to play
fair.
retro games.
Yeah.
You know, like I started
Okay.
the podcast Circle of Wizards starring.
Well done. Well
co-starring Matt F. Bosler. But I guess that's kind of, I don't have that much time to play them, but I do love retro, like NES.
But that's kind of like if you were to like get into the history of retro video games.
Oh my
that's
gosh!
your-
I
there it
watch
is.
I
Okay.
watch the gaming historian Norm. He lives in Kansas City and he has a huge channel, over 1 million subscribers. He might be 2 million, I'm not sure, but he goes into the history. He's like a A&E history channel. Like he'll go through and talk about all the creators and everything. If you're into games,
Is it Ben
that's-
Mankiewicz? Is that his name? That's the guy on TCM, right?
He kind of
Yeah.
looks. He looks actually like him, but he's really good at those things. He'll go through the history of Nintendo and Mario Brothers and the creators and everything.
Sure.
And so yeah, that would be
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Good. Well,
Yeah.
when we get to a video game movie, it's all you.
We have to watch The Wizard.
I saw that in theaters.
That Tetris movie.
Tetris movie is really good.
What was the one? What was the Adam Sandler one?
Oh no, we don't.
What
talk
was that?
Pixels?
Yes.
No.
That was bad.
That's real bad.
But
It's such a waste because I like it was a fun concept and
Big
such
time.
a waste. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a short film they shelved, like the Meet the Parents one.
Yeah.
There's a short film they erased all evidence of, but and then they like screwed the guy out of they changed it and cut him out of it. The guy that created it and did the short film. It was a big thing. But did you watch the Tetris, the Apple TV movie?
No, I have not.
Oh, it's so good.
Is that the
It's
one with?
so good. Taron Egerton.
Yeah. Okay.
Watch
okay.
it. It's again, you don't have to. It's Moneyball. You don't have
Right,
to watch.
yeah.
It has nothing to do with like, oh, I just love games. If you do, you'll find it fascinating, and you'll be like, oh, there's the Game Boy. Like you'll point out little historical things.
That was me during this movie.
Yeah, but seriously, you guys watch. What's it called? Is it just called? It's not called Tetris, is it?
I have no idea.
No,
It's from last
not.
year. I can't. God, I'm blanking on the name of it. It is so freaking good though.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, well, before we dig into all that shameless plugs, don't forget we're available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube. You're not
Yes.
supposed to say Google Podcasts anymore.
Oh, really?
It doesn't exist. They got rid of it.
We'll just promote YouTube. We'll gotta bump that up.
Yeah.
I mean, the "and" credit's good, as we all know, right? And
go here.
YouTube.
Yeah,
and
no, the
starring.
Apple movie is just called Tetris.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, I
So,
couldn't
good job.
remember, but yeah, it's good.
But
And Norm, the gaming historian,
Yeah.
I think did the video essay that inspired someone to write that script.
really,
Oh, really?
Because, and I haven't heard of any controversy or anything, but Norm did a great video that I think got 1 million or 2 views too, and it's all about how dramatic the whole thing was, and it's I mean, having to like sneak into the Soviet Union and stuff, and like it was a game created there by someone in their free time, and they tried to take ownership and sell the rights to different people. It's really good. But Norm did this whole video essay on it, and then all of a sudden, a couple years later, like, we're making a movie, and I'm like, and I kept posting places like, you should watch this video because it's really good. So, it's just I didn't even think those two things organically
That's
kind
funny.
of tied together. Yeah.
So, wherever you find us, be sure and follow us. You never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review. It's super helpful. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. It's called the League of Show Shares. We're hoping you will share an episode. And people who were kind enough to share an episode last week include Librarian Cynthia, Glenn Cougar Mellon Brewer, Tammy Lynn Powers Betts, Jason McLean, Travis Tewitt, Gabriel Lugo, Richard Krotzer, Tom Dowdy, Chris Falls, Ralph Tribble, Chris Magic Man, Phil Timon, Dissect That Film, Heather Sachs, David Rojas, Krypton Orphan 38.
Oh. Well, all right.
What?
I mean, I don't know where the 38 comes. Maybe it was just like, oh, I need a number.
Maybe they were born in 1938.
That's true. That's true.
Isn't that the year Superman came out?
Is it 38?
Isn't that Action Comics #1? 1938.
June of 1938. Yes,
Yeah.
That's right.
I shouldn't have to tell you. I
That's
shouldn't
right.
have to tell you these things.
No,
Don't you have that tattooed somewhere on your body?
Wendy Thompson, Colby Mack, Binge Movies, Geek to Me Radio, Ronnie Castle, Feel and Film, In Session Film, Mike and Oscar, Matt Niglia, and Ryan Terry. So thank you very much for sharing the episode. We greatly appreciate it. Also, don't forget we have a Patreon, patreon.com/Real Spoilers, where for $5 a month you get all sorts of bonus content, and we like you extra. So there's all that. Let's dig in, shall we?
Oh man.
Ding ding.
Yeah, it's gonna go throughout the entire
I told you,
thing.
the whole episode could just be the bell noise.
Before we get started, I do want to say that if you go over to Binge Movies to their Patreon, Jason and I did like a 4-hour, it's gonna be like a 4-episode thing of something that a lot of what has to do with this movie is the
Dark Side of the Ring,
which is a great series, and that that'll get brought up today.
Yeah,
basically about how the territories back in the 70s, that's how wrestling was. There wasn't like a big corporation. It was broken up into little pieces.
Regional.
It was
They
regional.
were regional things that had found various levels of success.
And depending on what kind of TV they had, that broadcast throughout the country.
Right.
And then like the consolidation of the territories into one big thing, which is kind of where we are now.
But you got to know the territory.
But you got to know the territories.
I just got you to quote a musical, and you don't even know it.
I don't know it. What is that?
The Music Man.
Oh, okay. So like the consolidation of the wrestling territories and how that became one basically monopoly, and then how that correlates to where we are in movies right now, where it's like 3 studios at this point, where it used to be hundreds. Not even hundreds, but hundreds, but a lot. And now it's
greater
not.
than 3.
Yes, correct. So I think actually it's on his page. It's on the Binge Movies Patreon, but I'm pretty sure it's free. It's a free. It's posted there, but it's a free show
to get people to check out the Patreon.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, man. Okay, I think this is one of my favorite. Not because it's wrestling. It does have a lot to do with it, but I think this movie is
not because it's wrestling.
Correct. Yes. Right? This movie is This is incrable. Like
it's a really good movie. This is Sean Durkin, the writer-director who directed.
He did that Elizabeth.
Mary, Martha, May, Marlene.
Yeah.
And The Nest with Jude Law and Carrie Coon. I interviewed him a couple years ago.
Did you see that? How was The Nest?
It was good.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
it's a
I like
slow
Carrie
burn.
Coon a lot.
Yeah, it's a slow burn. Just very haunted. It's about a relationship that's going bad and just the implications of that. And
I will say with this movie, it is hard for me because I know this story. Like, this is probably one of the more infamous stories in professional wrestling.
I had no idea about this story.
Do you remember Kerry Von Erich?
No, because I grew up with wrestling, but because of my age, I watched it more in the early 90s. So I don't think Texas Tornado was the.
I think he came 80s? in like 89, 90.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah, so I had just missed him and watching the older stuff. See, because they didn't call him Kerry Von Erich,
which
I didn't realize the Texas Tornado. Was it because Vince didn't want to promote the other?
So the thing with Vince McMahon is
Junior.
Whatever.
Well, I'm just saying
it's not. He's not Junior though.
Well, but that's what he goes by. It's a different middle initial.
He does not.
What?
The old guard, Andre the Giant, Gorilla Monsoon, they called him Junior.
Okay.
Nobody else.
I got you.
Yeah, but he's
because
the
his dad's name was Vince McMahon.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
He's Vincent Kennedy McMahon.
Yeah,
McMahon is
not
the one that we Vincent J.
Yeah, Vince
is his dad.
Oh, J. I thought it was E for some reason. Okay. You're thinking of Stimson J. Cat.
That's exactly who I was thinking of. Yeah. When he would bring people into the WWF, WWE now, if they came from a different promotion, he would basically change their entire whatever their gimmick was, and a gimmick. Oh boy.
Which sucks because it's like people loved the Von Erichs.
Correct.
So it sucks that he did that.
This film touches on it, but you don't know. Like, it's hard to understand just how popular these boys were.
Yeah.
David, Carrie, and Kevin, who are the three main characters of this movie, I mean, like, were legitimate rock stars.
I had no idea when I went back and watched the Vice thing. And,
Oh,
and
yeah.
all these
Did you
things.
watch it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I watched several of these different specials, and oh my gosh, these guys were bigger
were-
than movie stars.
They shut down a Six Flags. Like, they were out there to do a signing or something, and like the police could not get the crowd under control. They had to shut down Six Flags.
Well, in the movie, when you see the funeral thing,
I'm not a fan of wrestling, but anything that shuts down a Six Flags
That is
okay in my book.
callback
You've
to
got
callbacks right
Tom's
there, buddy.
attention. Yeah, go listen to episode 226. But in the movie, when we end up seeing the funeral and you're looking at it from overhead, and I was like, okay, that
Nope.
crowd is a little like
It's not.
I mean, you look at it, and the
Right,
crowd is like
yeah.
the Queen is going down the street. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of crowd. And then I watched the video,
The
and
real
I'm like,
one.
holy crap!
Yeah.
That people cared about these. They
Those-
were superheroes. They were
They-
American heroes.
They were, the people in Texas grew up with these boys because Fritz was okay. So they don't tell you at all about Fritz.
Yeah, probably for the better.
He was a scumbag. Is really the best way. He was insanely hard on those kids. He sold he sold pictures, like he was trying to sell pictures of David in this casket to people.
Oh,
Like,
jeez.
yeah, but he also his wrestling persona is he was a straight up Nazi.
Yeah, well, his
Like-
early one. That's the thing is like I'm glad they don't touch on that because they don't really need to touch
They
on
don't.
that part of
They
it.
don't.
Because he ends up changing it eventually.
No, he retires. But he was thinking of like, what's the worst?
Yeah, like if you're gonna play
Be
a
a
villain,
villain.
then especially that close to World War II.
Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily had quite the same political connotation. I mean,
'cause he was
obviously
popular, so-
Nazis were bad, but he was playing on the fact that Nazis were bad.
Correct.
It was a
sounds
character.
like.
To be clear, he
Yes.
was not a Nazi.
Yeah.
He was trying to become the biggest villain in
Yes.
wrestling, and so
Yes, that's why his
yeah.
finisher was called the Iron Claw instead of the Iron Cross. But he did have an Iron Cross as to like his ring entrance. Like he had a big like draping cape that had a giant Iron Cross on it, and he, being Fritz, played by Holt. Oh man, I can never say this guy.
McCallany or
McCallany?
McCallany.
Either he was on
That-
Mindhunter. He was
like the older cop on Mindhunter.
Yes.
That casting, I mean, his performance is incredible.
It's eerie.
It's uncanny when you watch the videos of the real Fritz and then thinking
Yeah.
back to this performance. Holy crap!
It's he must have, like, I was listening to Binge Movies actually, and he's like, he must have sat down with Kevin and said, this is what I'm trying, like, can you give me some some thoughts of, and Kevin, played by Zac Efron, this is basically like a biopic, I guess, like for him. Like the brothers are around him,
but he's definitely the star of the movie.
He's also the only one that's alive. Spoilers. He's the
Yeah.
only one left.
which I think is why they wrapped it around him, because in
had
the
to.
end, he has an ending. Like he is still around today and everything, but the other two were more popular.
David and Carrie, but it's tough.
Not that he
because
wasn't popular, but that's why in
Carrie's the
movie-
one. Like
Yeah.
David. So the way it kind of works in the pecking order, and we kind of see this in the movie, is Kevin is technically
Dad literally lays it out as to which one is better.
and that's like
Yeah.
it is this eerie kind of like I laugh during that scene, but at the same time it's kind of like it's darkly
That's
funny.
the kind of person
Yeah.
he was, but in it, he wasn't even joking.
No.
I mean, yeah.
And Kevin said in interviews like that he really did have an order of favorites.
Oh, for sure.
That was, the way that I have to say, after watching the specials, the way this film portrays this family is very accurate.
Pretty spot
There's
on.
things to
I
make
mean,
it
honestly,
fit
it
into.
sounds like if anything, they toned it down.
They did.
Yeah.
There's here's the one thing they leave out. There's another brother.
Yeah.
That they don't talk about because he also died. Chris,
Hmm.
who was they kind of Mike and Chris kind of get morphed together
Mm-hmm.
in this movie.
It's called an amalgamation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Chris was the youngest of the brothers. He had asthma as a kid, so he had to take like this medicine that made his bones not brittle, but not as dense.
Well,
I guess
he didn't grow. He was only 5'5".
Yeah,
Where
compared to the other
brothers were
boys.
big,
Yeah.
you know?
So he, trying to live up to his family name, and he gets in the ring and he breaks his arm, and he ends up I'm I'm trying to think. He shoots himself is what he does. And the director, like, you know, and Kevin finds him. Like, Kevin finds a note from Chris, and it says, you know, it's basically a suicide note. And he goes to Fritz, and he was like, hey, have you ever seen him do this before? And he's like, Fritz is like, you better go find him. And as Kevin finds him, he hears the gunshot, and he goes to like grab Chris. He puts his hand, this is from Kevin's mouth. He puts his hand like under his head because he thought he took something, and his fingers, sorry, YouTube or whoever, like slip into the bullet hole.
Ugh.
And that's how.
So that's why. I mean, we're jumping way around.
This
to the
is.
end
I'm
of
just
this,
saying, like,
but,
this is the one.
But that's why
the Carrie
death
thing
at the end is
no,
a combination.
The Carrie thing. Oh, sort of. You're
not
right.
Listening.
It's
an amalgamation because the dad finds him, not Kevin. So
Yes.
that's why that is the amalgam of
Yeah,
both
the way
brothers.
Carrie dies is right. Carrie
Yeah.
does, and it's awful. Like this family, and the director's like, I just couldn't put another one in there.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't.
Well, and it makes sense too. Like the Chris thing. I mean, as tragic as it is, and he was another one of these brothers, but there's already so many characters to follow.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so it would be really hard to put all 5 of them, and they all were 5 wrestlers.
Yep.
So it's like, I get
and
it.
then to have him die, another one die, and that honestly is what killed that promotion. It got to a point where the fans were just like, even the fans couldn't take it because it wasn't just the Von Erichs that died. There were other Bruiser Brody, who we see in the movie, and Gino Hernandez, who was the tag team that the brothers fight for when they finally debut together. Those are the two that they fight together. Both Bruiser Brody's murdered in Puerto Rico, and Gino Hernandez. Nobody's really sure what happened to Gino, but I mean, there can only be so many tragedies in a company where the fans just stopped coming, and that's what ended up killing that promotion. Is it was just too much.
Yeah.
And then so we do open up in this flick with, it looks like Fritz having his last match. Maura Tierney, who I think is also astounding in this as Helen, the matriarch.
I don't
of
think
the
it's
Von
Fritz's
Erichs.
last match. I think it's he's starting to take off. He just got the car so he could travel around the territory.
Is that? I thought he was going to buy the territory. Oh, you're right.
No, they were showing that like he was just kind of this like mediocre wrestler, and he's like, if I'm gonna really make some money, I gotta start acting the part.
Right.
So he leases a Cadillac, sells his car, and then he's gonna start touring as the bad guy villain and be big, and then I think that's gonna transition into where we end up in modern day.
He also shows that like he doesn't really care about his family. It's about wrestling.
Yeah.
And if wrestling supports his family, hey, great.
Right.
But like he's willing to like risk everything.
Yeah.
To just chase this dream.
And he wants to be the world champ. He wants
Yeah.
that, and it doesn't matter how he gets it. He wants that belt in the family.
And they don't show you while he's traveling around the country and he's at a wrestling match. The oldest brother,
Oh, Jack
Jack
Yes.
Jr.
Yes.
dies because he's out by the trailer and he somehow gets electrocuted.
So what he does is he touches the hitch, and he gets electrocuted, and he falls face first, like into a puddle, and dies.
and like drowns. Yeah.
And Kevin is there, and Kevin I think was like 3 or 4, and I do like the line. Man, there's a line we'll get there at the end of this movie.
Oh yeah,
Holy
what a great way to
Yeah.
end it. That was
and well, I'll get into it.
and that's really something from those interviews he
Yes.
said. So I mean, the fact that they
Yeah.
used that, like Durkin did his homework. Like this thing is so
sort of.
What do you mean?
Sort of. There's stuff that
Well, I don't think that he's wrong. I think he changed things for a narrative
for
film.
narrative purposes.
I don't disagree about
but
that.
he did his homework. There's
Yes.
no way he got stuff wrong. He made a.
He had to make
this-
concessions.
This is based on a true story.
Yeah.
I tell you at the front. That's any biopic.
Right.
No one's sitting there reading the history book and 1-to-1. You know what I mean? And
Well,
if,
they should. No, I'm just
if they were going to, this could have very easily been a series.
I
Yeah.
think this would have made a very interesting TV
You could have
series.
stretched this out into
Yeah.
6 and 7 episodes.
Yeah. So Jackie is technically the oldest Von Erich, but he does not.
He dies the youngest
He
of-
dies the youngest. Yeah. So Kevin is the oldest, and for the longest time, I always thought David was the oldest, just because
The way they pushed him.
Well, and also he was more popular.
Yeah.
Like he had there is something in wrestling that you just need to have that extra gear, and Kevin had the athleticism and he had the charisma in the ring, but he couldn't talk. And not that he couldn't, but when
He
that
was not a
scene-
good public speaker.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then when you see David, I mean, that's pretty accurate. As David gets on the mic, and
Yeah.
he is just a natural.
Which is so much what wrestling is, right?
Right.
I mean, obviously you have to be athletic. They're all pretty athletic, but it's the guys on the mic. It's The Rock. It's Stone Cold.
Steve Austin.
Those are the
Yeah.
people that motivate people. And, Warrior and all the people back in the day, too. But, think about modern wrestling. It's it's all about how good you are on the mic.
You have to
storytelling.
sell it. That's
It is,
exactly it.
right.
You have to sell. You have to, get the fans invested in you, and David had it. So Kevin is not floundering, but he has this match with Harley Race, who, if you're from St. Louis, is kind of he's based here. He was based here. He's not now.
So many Missouri references because of the all the
of
wrestling.
the NWA. I mean, this was a hub of the NWA. St. Louis wrestling at the Chase,
Chase.
there's all of this different stuff that was St. Louis. We're the center of the United States. I'm not.
And then
just
was it
saying
at the
that,
Keel?
but, they did wrestle at the Keel, but wrestling at the Chase, is
That's-
the big thing.
It's the at the Chase. Kind of
Oh
tells you.
no, I know that.
Okay.
No, I'm saying, but didn't they move after that? Didn't they do wrestling stuff at the Keel?
The Keel is the Chase. Oh no, wait. I'm sorry. There was a different building.
The Keel Auditorium.
The Keel Auditorium, which then yes, but
So there was Keel Auditorium and there was also Keel Opera House.
correct.
So
correct.
Keel Opera House for local people today is Stiefel.
Stiefel, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting to think that they did wrestling in there,
Yeah.
which is just very.
Oh, they did it at the theater.
even at
At the Opera House?
even
Okay.
wrestling at the Chase. Like if you ever been inside, which is a kind of a historic hotel here in town, they have like a banquet hall.
It's where Masters and Johnson lived.
Is that right? Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But
They
like
lived
the way,
on the penthouse on the top floor, I believe. Yeah.
huh? But the way that banquet, it's hard to like. I've been in that banquet hall. I'm just like, how did this work?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make any sense how they would get this set up. So Kevin has this match with Harley Race, and
we on Review STL we have an interview with the actor that played him,
to play who?
Harley Race.
Oh, do you really?
Mm-hmm.
That's fun.
Yeah, Kevin. I can't remember the actor.
He's pretty that's pretty spot on.
He looks just like.
He
the dude.
sounds like him too.
Yeah, he did a really
Harley
good job.
Race is a very interesting fellow. Harley Race is like the epitome of the guy in the bar who just sits at the end of the bar and doesn't say anything, but will tear your face off.
Yeah.
He is kind of famous for he could like bite either he could bite or he could use his hands and just like break and twist off beer bottles that aren't twist off.
Right. Before they were twist offs.
Correct.
Yeah.
He
I'll make my
like
teeth start hurting again
he
this
was,
week,
he
right?
was like a man.
Isn't
a
it
bruiser? Is
Isn't
the best
it
way
interesting to see the transition of what popular wrestlers looked like, and then maybe it's the Von Erichs,
Von Erichs.
more the modern prototype.
A lot of what you see in wrestling today is because of the Von Erichs.
But then you think of like George the Animal Steel. and that,
It's Hulk Hogan. Obviously, was a body guy,
Sure.
but he was not built like Kerry Von Erich.
Yeah.
Like Kerry Von Erich
those guys are built like the way you see
today.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
An Ultimate Warrior, and
yeah. Well, okay.
I'd say Warrior's more of a body than.
And where's Warrior from? Texas.
Oh, is he from Texas?
Yeah.
Okay, so he modeled
there's a
his-
line in this when Kerry comes home for Christmas.
Yeah.
And Fritz says, when are you going to get your shot? It looks like your old tag team partner Hellwig seems to be getting a shot.
that him?
That's the Ultimate Warrior.
Ah,
Jim Hellwig was the
he
Ultimate Warrior.
Okay.
And he was champion at that point.
So it's interesting. So Kerry went by the American Warrior or
So Kerry was the modern day warrior.
the modern day warrior. Interesting.
Kerry
so
Von Erich.
I can see where that character evolved.
And the Ultimate Warrior in WCCW, the World Class, was the Dingo Warrior.
oh, Dingo Warrior.
And his tag team partner was Sting.
Ah,
Like they were the Blade Runners.
You
at
have a
one
shirt
point.
of that?
I do. I'm wearing it right now.
oh, okay.
So Kerry gets this or Kevin gets this title shot, and the goal is that it's gonna be a DQ. Kevin's gonna win. It's predetermined, folks. We all know that. We're not gonna pretend like it's not.
But we're not quite there yet because he hasn't even done we haven't even talked about the to get the title shot yet. The first match he has is a not for the belt.
Yeah. And it doesn't. But that's the whole thing. Is like the goal is like they're gonna get you two in the ring. Kevin is going to win by disqualification, and then that will lead to
Gotcha.
because that's kind of the way wrestling used to be. Is you would the NWA champion would go from territory to territory and kind of build up their stars, and then
It's crazy. And if they took off enough, they would give them the belt. I find that so fascinating that it's not like...
It was a very carnival-like experience.
Yeah, and it's not predetermined in the way like, okay, you're going to go on this 6-month tour and then end up with the belt at the end. They're like, if you're popular enough, you'll end up with the belt. I think that's such a fascinating way to see, like, does this guy work or not? Because we're not going to give the belt to someone if they're not popular.
And that's the whole thing is, like, the NWA, their champion would go to Texas. They'd go to St. Louis. They'd go to the Carolinas. They'd go,
And apparently put on the same show at each stop because there was no TV, and right at first.
Back then, yeah.
And so, if you had somehow watched both shows, it'd be the same outcome, it'd be the same moves.
Shawn Michaels has told the story where he was wrestling. He was working a program, which means these two guys were working together. Razor Ramon or Scott Hall. They were working towns together, and they would have an A match, a B match, and a C match, and they knew it. They knew what they were going to do, and he's like, "What are we going to do?"
That's good. They started switching them
we'll
up.
We'll go to match A, or we'll go to match because by then you have TV,
right.
You have stuff like that.
And it sounds like the Von Erichs really were the ones that made, like they said in the documentaries, like there was no one with cameras going into the ring and doing all that, and they kind of started the show.
That world class revolutionized, like things that we see today.
Yeah.
Came from world class.
Sounds like they invented modern.
Well, and there's a line
wrestling.
in this where the youngest brother is like, was it Mike? Did you see all the good all the new camera angles?
Yeah.
And Fritz is completely dismissive.
Camera.
Like, people don't come for the camera angles, and it's like the hell they don't.
Yeah, right, especially when they're on ESPN.
It makes it more dynamic for the home viewer, which is ultimately they are there for the whether the average viewer knows that they're there for the camera angles or not.
Right.
If they watch one with really good camera work and one with
garbage camera work,
they're going to instantly like the better camera work one better.
They used to essentially just set up a camera and point it at the ring, but that wasn't exciting.
No, I mean, in the WWE, the way wrestling looks now is based on the WWE. Like they have that. It's hard to describe to tell someone who doesn't watch wrestling that Vince McMahon, the way things are shot and the cameras are moved and the way things look, like he did all that. Like that's basically what it's looked like. If you were to watch an episode of Raw from 1997 and watch an episode of Raw from 2023, it's basically the same. It's better cameras. Like there's more lights and digital boards, but the angles and the way the camera moves, all that stuff is from him.
But it sounds like he took it from the Von Erichs.
Did. Yeah,
right?
The Von Erichs, there was no theme music back then. Like the Von Erichs and the Freebirds were the first ones to start using like popular songs.
That was cool the way they show Mike listening.
So did boxing take that from wrestling?
I think probably the pageantry I think has always been there with boxing, but I think that there's probably like a give and take between the two. As far as like using songs, probably it probably is like a symbiotic kind of thing because in
pretty
Rocky,
sure Apollo Creed invented.
But I mean Rocky coming out to High Hopes and things like that. But I mean, wrestlers just kind of like the ring announcer would say their name and they'd trot out to the ring and I'm pretty sure it was the Freebirds that started using like licensed music and it changed everything because then the crowd knew who was coming. And
do you think they licensed it back then or just
hell no?
Like there's no way to
no way. No, I mean they tell stories of Paul Heyman who ran ECW, like he would use Alice in Chains or Pantera and never license the music. Like that's when you watch the stuff on the WWE network now or the Paramount,
they have
Peacock,
to take all the music out
they
of
have to
it.
put in like garbage like like
royalty free.
That might sound a little bit like Man in the Box, but it's not, When
I used to work in radio, they would send us discs of royalty free music, and it was all like named to where it was like, you
knew what it was supposed to be.
You knew what it was supposed to be. It was like the Dead Heat Chili Pipers, and it's like, and it would sound like
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna listen to
That's
Dead
really
Heat
funny.
Chili
it
Pipers.
would sound like like the opening of like Suck My Kiss or something.
right.
But not really.
Not really.
We need the new intro to the show. I think for 2024 is the Dead Heat Chili
I will
Pipers.
tell you, if you can go find it on YouTube. They're everywhere. If you listen to Chris Jericho's.
We might not want to mention him right now.
Diamond Dallas Page.
Thank you.
Diamond Dallas Page's like WCW theme. It smells like Teen Spirit.
Yeah,
but it's not. Like that's absolutely what it is, but it's not. So he gets this match, and the match goes okay. Like everybody's kind of on board with it.
They're all hyped up, but he gets on the mic and he can't say anything.
And so David jumps in the ring and starts cutting a promo. And when cutting a promo means like he's talking smack to Harley Race. And it's very accurate, is that David just had it. Whatever that X factor is that you need to get over in front of fans, like it was just, he had it. And everybody saw it. Even Kevin saw it. And he was just like, and that's how that happened. Is they
that was the beginning of the end for Kevin's title
correct
push.
Sort of, right? Because as the story goes on, and they don't really get into it, but as Kevin becomes the only Von Erich left, like we got to put it on somebody,
Right.
you know?
He's got the name.
Correct.
Right.
And
But
he's got the skills, but
for this time period, I
Yes.
mean, that's stuff that, I mean, the movie doesn't even show him ever becoming the.
he
champion.
has a match in. Actually, let me see. I wrote this down. He wrestles Flair at one point after Flair gets the belt.
Who doesn't, right?
That's also true.
Right?
Like that dude
He was
wrestled
the guy.
everybody.
He was the guy.
He was the man.
I wrestled him.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's him. He just,
That was just for fun. That was recreation.
That was
Yeah.
funsies.
Yeah.
Yeah. He
He was
does.
staying at the Chase. and-
Yeah, he's like, hey, let's go. What are we doing? So he does wrestle Flair at one point before David, I think, and Kevin wins the belt, but they do what's called a dusty finish.
Dude, that was messed up.
Which one?
The real when he wins, but they take it away and disqualify him.
Right.
That was they don't show this in the movie, but in real life, that
yes.
was messed
It's called a
up.
dusty finish. Dusty Rhodes is a famous wrestler. His son is now on the program now. Cody.
Goldust.
Yeah, no, well that's his
Well,
other
Dustin.
son.
Well,
Dustin.
the
Yeah.
one that was before
Yes, that's
Cody
right.
was
Dustin Gold Dust.
Goldust.
And what happens is you make the baby face go over, you make the crowd think that they've won this belt or won the match, and then the refs say, "Oh, we missed this," and they reverse the decision.
I watched the real thing and I'm like, how did they get it? Like, I didn't see anywhere. What did they say he was disqualified?
So there
for?
could have been. So one of the rules, I think, in one of the promotions was like you couldn't jump off the top rope.
Oh,
like
that was
or you
his
couldn't-
finish.
You couldn't
yeah.
throw someone over the top rope. It was all
Okay.
these different things that were
Which
pretty-
was weird because earlier in the match, I believe Flair threw him out of the ring.
okay. So right, but he's a bad guy, and so
Oh, so he
Flair's
didn't catch
Flair's
it, maybe?
breaking the rules.
But I'm just saying, if they're going to disqualify Kevin, Flair
well,
did
don't
it.
put logic into it.
Okay, I'm just saying. I watched the match.
we're not here for that.
I was as frustrated as those people in the audience because when Kevin won the belt, I mean that pop.
Yes.
People were so ecstatic because at this point in time, the Von Erichs were more popular than the world champ. They wanted him, and when they took it away, that whole audience is like, I'm surprised there wasn't.
Well,
a
that's the
riot.
thing is right, and now you've got the fans that come back
Yeah.
when Kevin gets his rematch. I will say, Kevin wrestled Harley Race in '83, but David wrestled Harley Race in '77 and '81. So like, David was already wrestling. So they make in this movie they make it look like David jumps in the ring and all of a sudden, but
Yeah.
when that match happens with Harley, David has already wrestled Harley Race twice at that point. And now they've strapped the rocket to David, and he was it. He was gonna be the one to bring that title into the family. He was going to Japan to do this tour, and basically they say you got to get over in Japan to get over here because the NWA at that time had a working relationship with Japan.
I
and it
had
was this
no
big thing.
idea that back then wrestling was so popular. I know today it's huge
Sure.
in Japan, but I had no idea back in the 70s, 80s that people blew up like that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
big time. I mean, you can find like Hulk Hogan.
I want to see Hulk Hogan go like Japan.
Hulk Hogan
matches
wrestles
and
the
stuff,
Great
yeah.
Muta like over in Japan, and he wrestles a completely different style because the Japanese wrestling is completely different than
Right.
it is here.
That's interesting.
It's weird to watch Hulk Hogan, who's very like body slam, punches in the face,
Actually doing athletics.
doing like an enziguri, which is like kick to the back of the head, or an arm bar, or things. It's like this. I don't like this at all. Like, can you go back to dropping legs? So while all of this is going on, Kerry, who is the middle brother, is about to go to the Olympics, and he's a discus like shot put thrower. But Jimmy Carter pulls the United States out of the Olympics in 84. No, what year is
80.
it? 80.
Yeah.
in Russia.
Yeah, because the Olympics are in Moscow.
The Olympics are in Moscow. Russia invades Afghanistan.
Right.
It's bad. It's bad. And so he's like, we are not going to send our American athletes to the Soviet Union,
Right.
and pretend like everything's okay when they're invading Afghanistan.
When it's not.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is like just another bad luck. I mean, besides from the deaths, I mean, with Jack Jr. dying, like this is really the first really bad tragedy that happens because it's like this guy would have a whole different.
He's almost like Michael Corleone in The Godfather, right?
I mean, Carrie very much is.
You're gonna go be
Yeah.
a legit athlete, not a wrestling athlete, and bring that sort of stature
Yes.
to the family, and instead it gets taken from
then
you.
he
Yeah,
comes
it
home
drags you back in.
Yeah.
Right.
I want you to be a part of the family
And
business.
that's the other thing is I think that they do a really good job of making Fritz in the beginning, right? I think he's very lovable and he loves these boys and he loves the business and that's their world. And as the movie goes forward, he gets worse and worse and worse. Which I do think is interesting because in this scene, right? So Carrie, they realize that he's not. I do like the scene where Carrie's practicing and then like the coaches come walking out and people are just kind of like, what's going on? Yeah. And then you see like the reactions of people around them where like a guy's throwing his hands up or another guy collapses. And
this is, Sean Durkin being an excellent director. I love that he shows and does not tell. His movies are full of that where he does not hold your hand.
Yeah.
He presents enough evidence to figure it out, but I just love that his storytelling technique is watching these things play out without a character expository.
There's archival footage of like Jimmy Carter saying, we're not going.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have to say anything.
But I just love that in another movie, someone can go, hey guys, they're stopping the Olympics.
Right.
But in this movie, it sits there for a minute, and everyone's like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
And it's the audience. You go, "What's going on?"
You're like, "What is happening here?"
I just love that you get to take in the story like that, whereas someone else would just spoon feed it to you.
That's true.
I'm just saying he's a really talented director, and that's just a small part, but you'll notice that throughout the film is he lets you kind of live in the moment with the characters, see it through their eyes. There's some excellent performances. I mean, Zac Efron is phenomenal in this movie. He's a really good actor.
He's fantastic in this movie. I can't get over his face.
Well, he broke his
something.
jaw.
Is that what he did for real?
Well, he broke his jaw before when he was doing the Great Beer Run or something, because he's in interviews to promote that movie, and people said, "Oh, there's rumors you've done something to your face," and so he broke his jaw.
Okay.
And so it healed in a certain way, and then obviously put on a lot of muscle for this movie, and then I think you just fill out overall.
Yeah,
but
sure.
But he had an injury.
It was a little distracting because and that's
But
not.
you know what?
It's not him.
It kind of hit. He didn't look like Zac Efron.
He
honestly.
didn't look like Zac Efron. The
So-
only issue I do have with that is he got himself into Carrie Von Erich shape and not Kevin.
That was one of my things that I had noticed watching that archival footage. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, Carrie was that big.
Carrie was huge.
But going back to the thing, I think they centered this around Kevin because he's going to be the one he lived the entire story.
Yeah.
But, you can't have every actor dedicate themselves to.
No, that's true.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a tough thing because Kevin looked like what Carrie looked like, but you can't have every actor putting on 60 pounds of muscle,
And
right?
some people you just can't do it. Like their
Totally.
body just doesn't work.
I mean,
that way.
talk about apparently finding an actor that looked and sounded like Ric Flair, very difficult.
Oh God.
Yeah,
If you didn't watch wrestling, you still would know that's
my
not.
my wife was just like, "What was the Ric Flair thing?"
Here's the thing.
That was someone who could not hide their accent, whatever accent they have. I don't know.
Here's the thing
what-
about Ric Flair is that character is very specific.
Yeah.
And it is, you can do a Ric Flair, like mean woo, like all that. He's got a
the woo he got down off
He
camera.
didn't, though.
You heard him. I know, but I'm just saying. He said woo. That's about the only thing that guy could do. It's bizarre.
That was the thing that almost took me out of the whole thing.
Yeah, the movie was great until then.
Yeah.
And it's an excellent movie overall. That is the first time in the entire movie where you go, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah, that promo that he cuts
It's
that they
horrible.
show is like, man, you should just play the real promo.
And I went back and
Holy
watched
cow.
because I'm like, I gotta see. I watched the Flair Von Erich promos,
Yeah.
with the different brothers and stuff, and each one, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's what I remember Ric Flair. Even when I watched
even today.
WCW,
Yeah.
that's the Ric Flair I know. Whatever he was doing in this movie
It's real bad.
It's nothing like the way Ric Flair talked.
Did you ever see? Who is it? Will Ferrell in what's the HBO show where Danny McBride plays like the pitcher?
Eastbound and Down?
Eastbound and Down, yeah.
There's a
Where he's a
clip-
car salesman?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what that reminded me of. But it was real bad.
Yeah, I just don't know what the hell that. I mean, for a movie that's so well casted and the performances are so good.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why that guy got to be Ric Flair. I just don't get
know.
it.
It wasn't.
Did they hire him before he got on the mic? They're like,
They were
hey,
like,
you look like you got
"Oh,
the
man."
belt. And then, it was weird.
Yeah. So Kerry gets pulled off the Olympic team. He goes home and he's with his brothers. And there's even a scene here where the Von Erich boys are playing football, and Mike is not the most athletic one, and he's into music and he's just into different stuff. And his dad is just busting his balls.
I really thought that he was going to end up being gay.
Oh, well, I got to tell we never got it. Mike never lived long enough to get around to that. But I don't think you're totally wrong. You know, he could have been, but could you imagine being in that family?
Yeah, that would
Like,
be
holy crap.
awful. But I really thought that because he was more like musically inclined and
Right.
like he seemed the sensitive one of
Yes.
the family.
I think you're
And
absolutely right.
Although I think the movie kind of plays Kevin is also sensitive, but savvy
Also
enough
kind of a dope.
to shut up about it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly. We should also say that we were introduced to Lily James, who, when she comes on screen,
I didn't know she was in this movie till she showed up.
yeah, but
I hadn't seen her for a little bit.
she is. I think she's the epitome of a star. Like, you're immediately drawn to her. Like, she is.
We talked about her in Cinderella.
Yeah.
She does have that thing,
Yeah.
right? She has that charm, that charisma, that natural talent to where you're just she's mesmerizing in that way, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And she's so good because Kevin is kind of a dolt. He's kind of not a dolt, but he's just kind of clueless. So like when she's hitting on him, he has no idea that
Yeah.
she's hitting on him, and she's like, you're kind of supposed to do this. She's like, oh yeah, right.
So just to break in here, breaking news.
Yeah.
Aaron Dean Eisenberg says, "I'm sorry if you didn't like how I portrayed Ric Flair. I stand behind what I did."
Well-
He's got a lot of heat.
Well,
because
bud, you did a bad job.
anyone that has ever even watched an episode of wrestling,
that's the thing is like I feel like Flair. As soon as you see even the Flair from the '80s, right? As soon as you see him, you're like, oh, I know who that guy is.
Yeah.
Like that guy looks, like the other problem is at the Draft House they played a lot of Ric Flair promos,
So it
and
was
it's like
top of mind.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Even the promo that he cuts in the movie is in the promo thing.
He worked with Durkin on another film of his called Dead Ringers, so I guess he knew the guy and gave him the part. But it's just a shame because it is like a smudge on this almost perfect film. Like it's the worst thing about the movie. And I mean, that may sound over dramatic, but it takes you out of it so much because it doesn't even matter. Like pretend Ric Flair didn't exist and these were all fictional characters and they made up a character. It's just bad.
It is bad.
Like, it's not right, but it's also just a really bad promo. And like Ric Flair was good on the mic.
Right.
You know what I mean? It just, I don't know. It's a very strange thing.
It was very weird. So the thing that they don't really touch on is, so now Kerry's in the ring, and Kerry is the
We said David died.
not yet.
Okay.
But we're gonna get that's
Okay.
next.
Gotcha.
Kerry is the word that you used before, amalgamation.
Amalgamation.
He is a combination of.
You should know this. There was a comic book brand,
it was called
Amalgam,
Amalgam, yeah.
where
right.
they merged the Marvel and
man.
DC characters.
Super Soldier was my favorite.
Yeah.
Of David and Kevin. Like, he had the charisma, he had the body, he had the athletic ability, like he had everything. So now he's in the ring. All the three brothers are fighting together. What they don't talk about is they have this feud with the Freebirds, it's Michael P.S. Hayes, who is still working in the industry today, Terry Gordy, who is the big guy, and I wish I could remember the third.
It wasn't
Freebird.
Flair? Flair wasn't?
No.
Okay.
Well, Flair's involved in that, right? So
Okay.
Kerry is working with Ric Flair. They're having this, the Freebirds were good guys. They were working together. It was this big thing. They're having this cage match between Kerry and Flair, and Kerry is going to win. And Michael Hayes is like giving him a chair. He's like, hit him with the chair, giving him everything he can to like get, and Kerry will not do it because he's a good old Texas boy. He's playing by the rules. He's not going to break them. And then the Michael P.S. Hayes slams because Kerry won't be a bad guy. Michael Hayes slams the cage door on Kerry's head, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And this starts a feud that will set world class on fire for a long time. The feud between the Von Erichs and the Freebirds was a thing that, like, I mean, it jacked that promotion up to $1 billion, and they were off to the races from there. So that spun out David, and David was going to go on, and he was going to go to Japan. The real story is that they're sitting at a table, their kitchen table on the ranch, and Kevin was like looking at David and knew that David didn't look well. He's like, "Hey, man." So the scene in this takes place in a bathroom at
the wedding.
At the
Yeah,
wedding.
Kevin and Pam are getting married.
Yes, and David's in the bathroom throwing up. And I do like that even Kevin's just like, "Hey, man, like it's early. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell?" But you can see in the toilet, it
blood.
doesn't look right.
Yeah. You're like, that's not Jack and Muscatoli.
So gross. I had that at my wedding. And Kevin says, he's like, "I don't think you should go. Like, this is a bad idea, but David has to go. Like, if he wants to get this belt, he's got to go."
And in real life, he talked to his dad, and the dad said, "You're going to make every appearance that you..."
Basically, you show up to everything you're booked for. You never miss a booking.
So, I mean, man.
In
This guy, I mean, really, at the end of the day, Fritz,
yeah.
man, he was living vicariously through his children.
I mean, he's a stage mother.
Yes.
He was big, but he never got to the levels that he wanted to be. He never got the belt. And he says throughout the film, they kept stealing it from us. They never gave us our shot.
Right.
And so one after another, he has all these boys, and each one of them's going to go.
This is what I'm going to do if Brian ever gets a hit podcast.
Yeah. Yes. And then
us too.
Yeah. And it's like, one of these kids is going to bring the belt home, and then he just keeps pulling them in and pulling them in.
We had 2 kids that were going to do it.
And it's so sad because at the end of the day, and why, I think Zac Efron gives such a good performance in this, and he's the pain that you see through his eyes and feeling about, the being passed up by his father and seeing all these kids falling into this trap and everything, and how Fritz would just make it about, like, he would spin it around and pretend like, "Oh, well, you've had some bad fortune, but now you get to come and make the family proud and all this." But really what it is, it's like this asshole is so selfish and is so proud of the name and what he built that it's like he's going to get this title one way or another. And it's sad because ultimately it's him. And I think Zac Efron eventually will allude to it by the end of the film. But throughout the whole thing, no one says it. No one really stands up to him. But this jerk is responsible for the downfall of his entire family.
And his own organization.
Yeah.
At the same time. Unfortunately, David does go to Japan. He dies in Japan in February of 1984. Now
this is an interesting story.
It's one of 2 things, right? There's some people, the main thing the working theory is that he had gastrointestinus.
That's the official theory.
That's the one that the Japanese coroner reported it as, is that his intestines burst, and that's what killed him. Like, that's why he was throwing up.
But why?
There's 2 stories. The one is that they tell this to Bill Irwin, who was a former the Goon. If you Google that guy in the WWF, he was basically a hockey player. And that's says that, like, they were in Japan, and what there you just kind of eat, and they think that he ate so much that he burst he already had this thing, and he ate so much that his stomach burst, and that's what killed him.
That seems unlikely.
Yeah.
So
the other theory,
Flair to this day.
Yeah, and also,
apparently they say he was doing a lot of drugs to hide the pain and stuff. As
correct.
you see in this movie with the other brothers, it's like the
one brother.
They have no choice but to
work through
it because of this terrible father.
Right.
And so they basically are just like, well, I got to do it. And so apparently he was doing a lot of drugs to, understandably so.
Correct.
To get through this stuff.
And the story that is unproven is that Bruiser Brody goes to David's room, finds David dead, and then he starts flushing drugs down the toilet to get rid of it. So there's no evidence of drugs. I think the story's somewhere probably in the middle. I do think that he had this thing. I mean, like Ivy,
and then the drugs exacerbated it.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah.
I think it all ties in together.
I saw Ric Flair do an interview from a year ago, and he's just like, yeah, no one really knew he was on all these drugs. Or like, he just, to this day,
Also,
he's like,
here's the thing about wrestlers. 98% of them are lying. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Like, they're going to tell a story. If the fish they caught was like this, it's going to be like this. The guy that's the worst is Hulk Hogan.
Sure.
Like that's the
Well, also too, I think after so many years, you just start believing your own stories.
True.
Right?
That's very true.
Like, I mean, at first, you're a wrestler and you're selling it and you're doing all this stuff and you live this persona, and then 10 years later, do you really remember?
Right.
The original. I mean,
Yeah.
It's like that.
Memory is very malleable. We like
Yeah.
to think that it's not, but it is.
It is. Yeah, very much so. They speed up the timeline a little bit. David dies. They have the funeral in Texas, and it is, like you said, it is massive. It's a massive. He was the yellow rose of Texas was kind of what David was known by.
So they show an overhead shot in this film, and like I mentioned earlier, it looks like the Queen or King's coronation. You know, it just, the streets are lined with people on either side.
Yep.
And that's where I thought, oh wow. I mean it was popular, I'm sure, but goodness. And then you watch the video and there's like people on the street lined outside of the church. They had to put a video screen outside the church to show it so people could watch the funeral, and there's people just wrapped all along.
It's crazy.
It's
I mean, you'll never a wrestler. Okay. And not to any current wrestlers, but there will never be one as popular as those boys. When the time comes that the old guard does start to pass away, the Flairs, the Hogans, those guys, you'll never see that again.
It's hard to
You're
say because
you're not going to fill a stadium.
It's hard to say though, because now wrestling reaches such a worldwide audience. I mean, I feel like culture was just different. There was less to do, and people, like, wrestling was more of a popular thing for the common. It wasn't just like wrestling fans. It's like people, just general people, enjoyed wrestling.
Yeah.
Where now it's like wrestling fans watch wrestling and no one else. People
everything. It's the nichification of America, right?
Exactly.
Everything,
Right.
Which, I mean, podcasts, right? Like, we
Thanks, COVID.
Yeah, but I mean, but
started ours
podcasts
before
play
that,
into
yeah.
that, right? Like, look how many podcasts that would never work as radio shows because there aren't enough fans of that one particular topic in each individual city.
Sure.
But collectively across America, there are. And so, I mean, the Clip Out is a fine example. That would never work as a radio show. There aren't enough people in any one market that care about Peloton, but nationwide, you can hobble together enough to justify its existence.
And you did.
But the people that mourned Bray Wyatt recently, that's a huge loss, and there are people outpouring. I mean, he was way too young to die.
Oh, yeah.
Was super popular and over.
And it wasn't anything weird. Like, he had COVID, and then he had a heart thing, and that killed him.
But I mean, worldwide, the outpouring of love and support for him, I mean, is...
That's true. I guess that's fair.
I'll say this. I've never heard of that dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
That's my point.
But I've heard of these other people you've rattled off.
Yeah.
But that's what I think the difference is. It's not necessarily that you'll never have as many people that care, but it's so niche where the Von Erichs were worldwide, just celebrities, not wrestling celebrities.
Yeah.
Because there was less to do, there was less shows,
That's true.
no social media. People knew wrestling that weren't even wrestling fans. They were just like, oh, sport, like this is a sport. This is a thing.
Right.
So I just think it's different, but
It was the beginning of the nichification of America.
Oh, yeah.
I think, because if you think about it, like, real sports would air on the networks, right? But wrestling never aired on networks.
No, not until WCCW ended up on ESPN.
But even then, that's still a cable network.
Oh, I see.
Right?
You mean like the big
like
three.
the big three.
I got you.
And when they would try it, it wouldn't work. Like,
Yeah.
remember when they used to, there was a period in the 80s where when SNL would have its off week, they would
Saturday Night's Main Event.
they would do a wrestling thing, and nobody watched it, and it went away.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Well,
it's
I don't think that's entirely true. I think they watched it because it was the height of Hulkamania.
yeah.
So like those first few ones, yes, I think they were. But
God, that
then,
has to be one of
Then
the-
they trail off.
Hulk Hogan has to be the most successful
A crossover star.
like we were saying,
It's
the
gotta be Rock.
Well, I know, but he's movie star and all that, definitely. But Hulk Hogan had America by the balls.
Oh, yeah.
As just like, what I mean? Like, I know The Rock's a famous movie star now, and Batista, there's people that have crossed over, but don't you feel like Hulk Hogan was a celebrity, not a popular wrestler, but like Hulk Hogan was a
cultural touchstone.
But I feel like the Rock was that, and then movies turbocharged him. But he made a lot of unsuccessful movies before he became a movie star.
Yeah.
I mean, so it took him a long time. I mean, it took him 10 or 12 years
For sure.
before he really solidified the fact that people would go to a movie for him.
But Hulk Hogan became famous without movies. His movies were bad.
But
he was
I think The Rock was famous before movies. Like
Oh,
like, you know, like as someone who didn't care about wrestling, like when wrestling had that big run in the mid to late 90s,
Yep.
like I knew who The Rock was. I knew who Stone Cold Steve Austin was.
Yeah.
I knew who The Undertaker was.
Yeah.
After that, well, who's the
Mick Foley.
there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew him.
Mankind.
3 out of the
Yeah.
4 names you just rattled off.
Yeah.
wrestled for Fritz von Erich.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I knew those people. I mean, Hulk Hogan was massive, and
I
he
just
was
feel like he had his own. I mean, he had the toys and the shirts and the grills and the. You know, I just feel like Hulk Hogan like was in this upper stratosphere of
Absolutely.
celebrity
Yeah.
that wasn't attached to wrestling. Like it was, but like Hulk Hogan became a brand where you know, Stone Cold was like popular wrestler, The Rock was famous wrestler, and then famous movie star. But Hulk Hogan, for whatever reason, just to me,
It
seems like he just the Hulkamania was
Hulkamania was a thing.
it was like Batman '89.
It
was
exactly.
like Batmania.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Right? Not, it was like not just a famous comic book hero. Batman is a celebrity.
yes, that's I don't disagree with that at all. Yeah. So David dies. What they don't
but
really
like
tell
The Rock
you,
made a lot of bad movies before
Yes.
he finally figured it out. Yeah.
and then he figured. I mean, I feel like Faster, not the Fast and Furious. There's a movie called Faster, where the Rundown and Faster are the two that like. This is he
The
figured
Rundown
it out.
was the first one where I go, hey, that was
The
fun.
Rundown
That
was really good, but it wasn't a hit.
It was
was
not a
Yeah,
hit.
like, but I remember seeing it like a year or two later on cable, and it was like,
good movie.
I was like, oh, that was really good.
I rented.
very
Yeah,
good.
I rented
It's a
that.
lot of fun.
I don't think
Hell Dorado was the original name of that movie.
Oh.
And they should have stuck with that.
They should have.
What they don't tell you in this movie.
Be Cool was really the first time that I was like that guy.
Oh, when
But he was doing something very different there,
Very
too.
different.
Yeah.
But it
very
showed that
different.
it's like, okay, The Rock can do these different movies.
Yeah.
And then he went on a tear where it was not good.
Yeah.
And I thought he was going to go the way of Hulk Hogan, where it's like, well, you tried.
Yeah.
Get your ass back to the ring.
Yeah.
That's the way that works. What they don't say in this movie is the time frame between when David dies and so Carrie gets the shot. They pass over Kevin, and I feel like they don't allude to it, but Kevin didn't really want it. Like Kevin wanted to be with his brothers and to be in the ring, but like that idea of being the traveling champion was like, no, thank you. And it's only in real time, it's 3 months. It's 3 months between when they put David in the ground to when Carrie wrestles that match against Ric Flair. And you can find all of these matches are on. I don't think they're on the network. I don't think they're on Peacock. If you go to YouTube and you look up the Parade of WCCW, the Parade of Champions, this match is there. And all of these shows, these old world-class shows are on YouTube full free. So Carrie wrestles this match, and
But in the film, the father flips a coin. He's like, Kevin, I know you've been working so hard, but Carrie's more over.
Carrie is,
basically.
and he's not wrong.
But he's like, we're gonna flip a coin to the side.
It was Carrie the whole time.
Part of me wondered if he had a fake coin. Like I really thought he was, pulling one over on them.
I thought it was going to be like, okay, 2 out of 3.
Yeah, right.
Because he's basically, I think the dad probably would have done that if Carrie didn't get it.
I think Kevin had the brain. I think Kevin was very smart about the wrestling business, and he knew that like the only way this is going to work, it's got to be Carrie, because like Carrie was a movie star. Like he had the looks, and also it's funny to think of like you look at Carrie Von Erich in 2023, you're like kind of a goofy looking dude. I'm like, oh, what's wrong with your face? But
I guess we haven't even talked about the bear guy, the actor.
bear guy.
Well, that's a shot put guy.
That's Carrie.
Yeah, I know. We really
Yeah.
haven't mentioned the actor though. We should tell people that.
I guess
that's
it's the
who
guy
it
from
is.
it's
from Shameless
Flip
and the
from
bear.
Shameless, like Jeremy something Allen, Jeremy Allen White.
Yeah.
And I think he does a great job. The problem is Carrie was about 6'3", 225 pounds, and Jeremy Allen White is not.
He got in good shape though.
He did.
I mean,
but my point is that Zac Efron got in Carrie Von Erich shape.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Allen White got in Kevin Von Erich shape.
But that's just how the actor, unless they want to get a bunch of actual wrestlers that maybe can't do the acting part as well.
Sure,
you know what I
sure.
mean? It's just no one's going to do that. The fact
Oh,
is
do you know who trained all these actors to be wrestlers?
Chavo Guerrero.
Chavo Guerrero. Yeah. Junior, not the old
Junior,
man.
yeah. But Zac Efron got in incredible shape. Like, it's ridiculous. You
Yeah,
know, his
I-
abs are popping out.
Well,
Each
also,
one has abs.
I think about
like,
his body in Baywatch.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like, oh, this is just like a slim, like this is like a bulked up version because he's ripped to shreds in Baywatch.
He's ripped
Yeah.
in Baywatch, but I mean, he put on. You know, there's a certain way wrestlers look with the wide chest. And
Yeah, it's
everything.
called steroids.
I mean, but wrestlers have that wide chest. You know, there's
Yeah,
just
it's a
certain
barrel.
He
your
was
muscles look
fitness model ripped in Baywatch.
exactly.
Yes.
In this one, he was
He's-
wrestler.
He's like bodybuilder
Yes,
ripped.
that's exactly
here.
right.
And it's crazy how big he got for this movie.
It's dumb.
It's insane because he didn't need to. He could have been Baywatch shape, but from the first movie, and it's like we joked about with Patrick Wilson taking his
Yeah,
shirt off.
right,
Like,
right,
you're
right.
going to use shots of me with my shirt off. And that first, when he wakes up, he's sleeping, but his arms are like his muscles are out in his veins.
He's literally using his bicep as a pillow.
Yeah, it's like
it's-
he got pumped up.
There's a
before.
lot of tidy whities in this movie.
it was the 70s and
lot-
80s.
but we didn't have to see them all.
oh well. I'm sure if a girl walked around in their underwear, you'd be like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah, come on, equal opportunity.
Yeah. So Carrie wins the title. It's this massive thing. What they don't tell you is that Carrie dropped the title 18 days later back to Ric Flair in Japan. Like, that's the problem with Carrie is he was not reliable. He did, it's the 80s, so drugs are running rampant, and Carrie partook. And so Carrie...
So was that his punishment for doing drugs? They took the... Because, I mean, it's not like it's real competition where he lost a match. They would have written it that way.
The NWA would say, as the NWA champion, you would get assignments basically like, hey, you need to be in St. Louis on this day. You need to be on, in Chicago on this day. Carrie would miss dates, and that was unacceptable. You had to you're the champion. You have to make your dates. These other territories are counting on you to be there, and Carrie didn't.
So they gave it back.
So they
to
gave
Flair
it back to
'cause he was-
who was reliable.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that was Ric Flair's life. Ric Flair's daughter is also a current WWE superstar, Charlotte
We
Flair.
have interviews with her on ReviewSTL.com.
That's right. She's actually out right now because she completely blew her knee out. Her ACL, MCL, and patella were gone. So she is done for a year.
Patella is delicious.
Patella.
That's different.
That is different.
Yeah.
She plays a great heel though, doesn't she?
She's fantastic.
I
I mean, her dad. It's in the DNA.
she's
'cause-
playing she is the female version of Ric Flair,
Yes,
basically. And she
I'm
plays
better
it
than
great.
you, and I know it.
She
and
plays
you
it
can't
great.
beat
Comes
me.
out with the cape and the music.
Oh
and
yeah,
everything.
same music. Yeah. So while all of this is going on, Carrie he rides motorcycles. He has an
Like
accident.
this is the dramatization because he has the accident. I think 2 years later.
Yeah.
But this one, it's so
the
sad.
time frame is
It's so sad.
wider.
He wins the title in the movie, and then he's like, "I just can't come down. I'm so excited. Whatever. I'm gonna go for a ride to burn some energy." And you see him drinking.
Yeah, at that
in
point,
the movie
when he has the accident, he's already lost the title, and he's already
in real life.
in real life.
But
yeah.
in the movie, he goes out to ride his motorcycle
It,
after putting his
feels-
beard
it
down.
seems like it's like that night.
It's the
So it's
night
like he got
of.
the title,
Right.
And then he gets into an accident. Like, it's really interesting how they film it. It's like first person POV of him
Yep.
on the road, and you see
Again,
another car.
they don't
ahead.
show you anything.
Yeah.
No, and then go
it's
to
also
black.
a budget-friendly way to film
Also correct.
But I liked it.
I think the
don't-
accident. I think he wins the title in '84. The accident is in '86.
Yeah.
In real time.
Yeah. He hit a parked police car.
Yeah.
So in the movie, it fades to black, and then he wakes up and he's getting up, and you're just like, oh, what's going on?
This
Oh, he
is
has some road rash on his back, and you're like, okay, well, I guess he survived because not knowing the story, I'm like, oh,
Right.
there goes another one. But he survives with the road rash, and he gets up and he's on crutches, and I'm like, dang, he can't wrestle because he just got injured, and he's hobbling around, and then the camera pulls back when he's at the fridge, and there's no foot there.
He had damaged his ankle so bad that it's funny. I was getting two stories confused because there's another wrestler named Brian Pillman who had a similar thing. He destroyed his ankle, and he was. I always thought it was Carrie, but it's Brian Pillman who was all hopped up on pain meds. He got up to and put all of his weight on the ankle and destroyed it again, and they had to cut his ankle. Like they couldn't fix it, and for whatever reason I thought that was Carrie, but this is not. Like Carrie's ankle was just so damaged that they couldn't save it.
Yeah.
Now what they don't tell you in this, Fritz told the doctors, you do not tell anyone that Carrie doesn't have a foot. So when we see Carrie putting that fake foot on, he wrestled like that and told nobody knew.
He was in the WWF wrestling against the biggest wrestlers from
Yep.
that time that with no foot.
With no foot. And if you go back and
looked
watch
normal doing it, it's insane.
watch him wrestle post accident, you would have no idea.
It's
that's how good he was.
I could not believe that. I mean, so you see this struggle, and again, I think because it's like the dad kept pushing him, and they don't quit, they don't give up, and they felt such guilt and just obligation to do this.
Right.
But I could not believe when I went and watched the matches where in the WWF, when he goes there, he becomes the Texas Tornado, and you watch these matches against.
That's the other thing we were talking
Mr.
about.
Perfect and
is
everything.
he beats Mr. Perfect like his first night for the which is the Intercontinental
He
Championship.
has no foot, and he looks like he's. I mean,
Yeah.
doing the wrestling moves that every wrestler does. It's what an insane story.
He is probably one of if he had lived, if he had gotten himself together, he would have been the person we're talking about, like Hulk. Not maybe not to the level of Hulk Hogan, but he's in that conversation. He was
Yeah.
that good. What we were talking about earlier is when Vince would bring in people from other organizations, he would take their gimmick and be like, no, like that's not who you're this, right? So Dusty Rhodes, who is a pretty good example, was just kind of like this Southern everyman. He's the common man, right? That was his gimmick. When he comes to the WWF, he's like, you're wearing polka dots now. And you're doing, and it's just like, what are you talking about?
I remember that.
So, the modern day warrior, Kerry Von Erich, is this massive star, and he signs with Vince, and he's like, nope, we're not going to call you Kerry Von Erich. We're not going to call you the thing that everybody knows you by. We're just going to call you the Texas Tornado. That was his name.
Which
and
they
he
kind of still do today with, Daniel
Not-
Bryanson or whatever.
Well, that's
Bryan
true, because
Danielson.
what they want to do is they want to own
the IP.
the IP. So
But people know that. What's CM Punk's name or what's
CM Punk. He's always been CM Punk.
Okay, bad. But
Bryan
Bryan
Danielson
Danielson is Daniel
Dan-
Bryan. What's the other one that goes to AEW and is what's?
Oh,
give me
Adam
another.
Copeland.
Yeah.
So we know him. We knew him as Edge, but he can't call
Yeah.
himself Edge, so he's Adam
And
Copeland.
the other guy that looks like Ed Sheeran. What's his name?
The other guy that's
Is,
like
am I
Ed
thinking of-
Sheeran.
is
John
it Daniel
Moxley?
Bryan? Moxley.
Oh,
Yes.
so he was Dean Ambrose in the WWF, but his real name is I don't know if it's his real name,
but that's his AEW name.
It's
But,
John
but
Moxley.
people know. But now I guess there's more social media and stuff. Where back then, I mean, do you think it was a secret or did people?
I think everybody knew he was Kerry Von Erich.
Yeah. So I mean, it's still just because you changed the name. I mean, I know that's the famous gimmick, but people still know.
Yeah.
He took it away, but,
but
like-
Vince wants to own everything.
Yeah.
So that's why he wouldn't do like he wouldn't when he bought WCW, he wouldn't use any of their pay-per-view titles
Yeah.
because he's like, I didn't create it. I don't want it.
Yeah.
I'm going to own it, but I'm not using it.
Yeah.
So Kerry breaks, they destroy his foot. Now Mike, to me, this is the most heartbreaking one.
Yeah, again, like the father's running out of people for the roster.
Yeah, right.
So bring up. He was like the cameraman in their operation, and not
No, he was he was good,
Yeah.
right? But he wasn't Kerry or Kevin or
Yeah.
David.
And clearly, his heart wasn't in it as the movie
No.
presents.
So Mike's in the ring, and he's doing his thing, and what they don't tell you in this one is that they're in Israel. Is when this injury happens. So they're in Israel, wrestling a match, and Mike dislocates his arm. Now we've seen Mike throughout the movie. I love this scene where he's got a gig, and his mom says, "No, you're not going." And
all
the
the brothers
brothers
sneak
are like, "We'll go with him." And she's like, "Absolutely not." Well, the brothers sneak him out.
Yeah.
I do love how they portray the brothers in this.
Yeah,
I
the way
think
that
it's
they all
fantastic.
hug and embrace, and they clearly
They love
loved
each other.
Yeah.
Like,
And I love the fact that they were supporting his interest in something that wasn't wrestling.
Yes, they were just supporting their brother.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's wrestling this match, and he goes for a drop kick, and he lands on his shoulder, and he dislocates. It's not even that big of a deal, right? He just dislocates his shoulder. Well, what happens is he gets on a plane with, which you're not supposed to do, with an injury like that, and he gets a blood clot, and I think he has to have he gets back to Texas.
I think it was just, from what I understand, it just was routine shoulder surgery in Texas, and he gets a staph infection.
I thought they were trying to get a blood, there was a blood, maybe. You
But
could
he's
be
going
right.
he's going in to just fix the shoulder. It's in Texas. It's
Yeah.
not even out of the country, and he gets an infection. His temperature goes from
Like 107.
I think they said 105 in real life. In the movie, I think they say 107 to But
What
Still-
a weird thing to change.
I know.
Yeah, right.
But I mean,
right?
all the things
Even at
in the-
105, all adults are like, Jesus.
I know,
Right,
in
yeah.
the documentaries, they kept saying 105, but yeah, I think the movie says 107. But anyway,
Okay.
they're like, he's in a coma, and that's the point again. Whereas an audience member not knowing the story, we're all just like, oh my God.
What are the chances?
Like if it wasn't a
Family.
true story, you'd be like, "Oh, bull."
Stranger than fiction. You
Yeah.
wouldn't believe that. Yeah.
So they think he's gonna die. Kevin tells a gut wrenching story about how they all circled Mike's bed and they started praying, and then Mike came out of it.
And he just pops out of it, and the doctor's like, "We don't know how or why. He's better."
Well, I don't know if he's better. He's alive.
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
As the story goes, he was never the same.
No,
right?
he boiled his brain.
Yeah,
Like that.
It's just his brain and Kevin tells the stories about he would attack parked cars with no one in them.
Yeah.
He would just like start attacking them and banging on them. Like he just wasn't there. He would have these moments of rage that something in his brain he just couldn't control it
Right.
anymore.
And I will tell you can find there's a
The press conference
dude, like it
where
is
he's like,
hard to
"I'll
watch.
be back." He can hardly talk, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll be
His
back."
eyes all up,
Yeah.
like it's all bloodshot,
And this is in the movie. Like, I mean, they portray it pretty well, where you can see the guy where he's like holding his hand. He can hardly even have a movement of his hand. His other hand's in a cast. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll be back."
did you say toxic shock? That's what he
That's
gets.
what he goes into. Well, he got a staph infection,
the
but the
toxic-
temperature
yeah.
or something, and then he got
Yeah.
toxic shock syndrome. But
Which I gotta tell you, before cell phones, right?
yeah,
And I lived in a house with 2 women. There wasn't much to read when you're dropping a deuce.
so you read the back of the tampon thing?
And that's
Yeah,
how I learned about toxic shock.
That's I think the thing it's most commonly associated with, and nowadays people know more.
But man, watching the way they portray this in the movie is
Yeah.
almost identical.
Yeah,
Like,
it is.
Mike is gone. Like the Mike that we see before is not the Mike we get after he comes out of that coma.
Jim Henson died of toxic
Oh,
shock
dang.
syndrome. Yeah.
Oh wow, I
What's he
just thought
doing
he
with
had
those
pneumonia.
Muppets?
I thought it was just pneumonia. I never realized it caused that it went.
Oh,
into
sure.
that. Yeah. But the fact that Fritz and no one else had the balls to step in on his behalf because Fritz was pushing these kids so hard.
Yeah.
There is no one in their right mind that would think that Mike should have continued wrestling after that.
No, he should
Call
never
it a
have been.
day.
Yep.
Like
he
just-
should never have gotten
he
back.
shouldn't have been in the ring in
should
the
not have
first
been in the
place.
ring.
But to say that he's going to be back and wrestle is just crazy, and that
And he can't.
pressure.
And he couldn't.
And he knew
so
that. Like,
I think in real life, Mike did get busted with drugs, so he had some drug charges pending. And
that's Carrie.
No, it's also Mike.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
'Cause I know that was Carrie's
It is
story that they
Carrie.
don't get into in the movie.
It is also
Okay.
Carrie. That Mike also
Yeah.
had some drug charges, and he felt that he was going to dishonor the family name, and he took a bunch of pills, and he wrote a note, and he took some beers, and he literally wrapped himself up in a sleeping bag. They
See, I
kind
think
of
Kevin, the way that Kevin tells the story in those interviews, he says like it was before people knew stuff, and he was just fighting through the pain and stuff, and took a bunch of meds with beer, and like that's the way that Kevin presented it.
Well, I'm pretty sure he left a note.
Yeah, I think they all left notes.
That's true.
They're polite like that.
Right.
Well, that dad taught him.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
better be.
So he got arrested for drug possession, and then he ODs in his car, and they find. And this is kind of the beginning of the end. Like that's the Von Erich curse. It's hard to not believe it.
Yeah.
At this point.
Well, once David dies, it's like the whole thing is just such a mess.
It's on
with them swapping people for the title shot, and then
and
just
Carrie
one thing
at this
after
point,
another.
I think Carrie's gone. I think Carrie is in the WWF when Mike dies. I think because Mike dies in. I wrote it down. Mike died in '87, and then Chris died in '91. So Carrie, I think, is up there because Carrie dies in '93.
Okay.
Spoilers. This is, I think now we're in the movie, at least we're focusing on Kevin. Like he's got this new family. He's got these twin boys. He's got Lily James and he is just falling apart. He's also, they do this, which I think is interesting, is when they're doing the boys' birth certificate, he does not put Von Erich on the birth certificate.
Children are a gift.
That's it. Sometimes he puts Atkinson, which is their legal name. Like that's their actual name.
Like it shows how much weight he was putting in this. Like he even says in these later interviews, he's like, I know it's silly. I shouldn't believe in this stuff. Like, but
it's hard to not.
Man, it would be hard. Even if you didn't believe in anything, but this stuff kept happening, it would be hard not to be like, I'm cursed, you know?
Or the family's cursed.
Yeah, and it's sad because as you see, like, his marriage is kind of falling apart because he is not coming home and he's trying to stay away from these boys, and he's like, I don't want them to get it, which does sound ridiculous. And Lily James is like, come on, you know? But she's like, this doesn't work. You need to come home because this doesn't work.
I can't
for
do this
me.
by myself.
She's working. She has aspirations. She wants to be a vet, and they've got these 2 kids, so she has to go to work. And meanwhile, he's just like, but I get it. Like, dude, if there's anyone you can sympathize with, I mean, he does have to step up and be there for his family. But the dude has been through.
He's lost 3 brothers already.
So it's just a terrible situation over, you know.
Very much so. Very much so. Now Kevin is still wrestling. He has this match with Flair. The timeline for this one is messed up. This is not right.
Did you notice too how, as you know, when the brothers, when things are getting worse,
don't look at that clock.
Yeah, when things are getting worse and worse and worse, and you see the arena, and it's like
it's getting less and less.
You see less people in the audience.
I thought that was a really slick move.
How you can tell, I mean, just to show without telling you, you see the turnout for these shows. People don't care anymore. The thing is ending.
The like I said, the David Manning and Bill Mercer are these 2 characters that they kind of combine into one. The guy who's like the ring announcer, that's Bill Mercer, and David Manning are like 2 characters put together.
And that guy is going to be in St. Louis at the Toyman show, which I work at every month or whatever. David Innes, I think is his name. Scott Innes, and he does some voices of Scooby-Doo and Shaggy and stuff. But he's the actor that played him.
Yeah, so.
Come meet him, Toyman.
Maybe I will.
January.
So that Flair match that they do here, where it looks like Kevin screws it up and he attacks Flair.
Oh yeah.
That actually happens in 1985. So Mike and Carrie are both still alive when that happens. In the movie, they're both dead. So like the timeline is a little messed up, but it also it is kind of funny how everybody freaks out that it looks like Kevin like hurt Flair, and it's like, you knew what was going to happen. Why are you
that's
guys...
one of my complaints about this movie is that when they're doing stuff in the ring, it's really hard to know what is wrestling
and what is not,
and when it suddenly becomes real.
Sure.
And like I wish there was a little bit more delineation to when something was happening that wasn't planned.
Well, even when they go back to the locker room, and Flair's like, "Hey, man, you were awesome out there.
Right?
Like, we got some heat. Like, we got something going."
But in the movie, in the narrative, because you're right, this match is not in the timeline how it happened.
Right.
But he was not supposed to do that. Like, he held on to him and got disqualified. This was supposed to be his title shot.
Oh, is that right?
Like he was not supposed to DQ him, and that's why the dad's like, "What the hell was going on out there?" So he screwed the whole thing up in the movie. In the
yes.
So
yes.
in the movie, this is the end of this whole thing, because after that, like,
because Carrie's sitting there and Carrie is about to go, like, because in the movie, it's Fritz and Carrie are both sitting there,
and
we've
like,
seen,
what the hell are you doing?
And we've seen Carrie try to wrestle on this busted foot and he can't do it.
And Kevin screws this thing up, and so there's just nothing left, and so now he goes to WW. He takes the WWF.
He takes the offer, and it's hard to not take that offer in 90, 91.
Yeah. So fast forward, so no one's at these shows anymore.
No.
The dad gives the business to Kevin.
So this isn't true.
Okay.
Fritz is the one who sells to Jerry Jarrett.
Oh, okay.
Kevin did not want to sell the promotion at all.
So they flipped the roles.
They did
to make it more like this is how he gets out. That's
correct.
The happy ending for Kevin is getting out.
But Fritz is the one, and the fact that Jerry Jarrett, who we know his son is Jeff Jarrett, who is still that's right, still working today. I just watched him like yesterday. Yeah, so Fritz, I mean, he basically kind of suckered Jerry Jarrett. I think Jerry Jarrett thought he was buying a hot territory, and he was
because it was, but apparently he didn't get the
not.
updates.
Correct.
Yeah. But in the movie, though, narrative-wise,
he sells to Jerry Jarrett.
He gives it to Kevin. Kevin talks with Fritz, and he says, "Hey, well, Lily James, Pam, in the movie is like, we can't. This place is too small. We've got these 2 boys. I don't know if at this point one's on the way. If they show that might be
no,
later,
that's the very end.
They're like, we can't live here anymore. We got to do something." And so he goes to his dad, and he's like, "I got an offer from Jarrett."
He's like, "Don't you dare!"
And then the dad's like, "If you sell, you will never walk through those doors again." Basically disowning him.
Right. As they're watching Carrie win the IC title.
And he's at Survivor Series or something, and watching him wrestle. So Carrie comes home. He clearly is not in a good way.
He is a mess. Yeah. He is a mess.
Brings some woman home they've never heard of or seen. And
right.
he even says like that's no one like later on like just bring someone
he gets
home.
Carrie calls Kevin on like at night and he's like, where's Tanya? And he's like, who?
Yeah, but he so at this when he comes home for Christmas, he brings the dad a 44 Magnum or something.
Woods, which was once owned by Anton Chekhov.
Oh,
that is when I said,
well done.
Yes, yeah. I was like, do you know some history in this? Like, look,
that's
it's
great.
you.
Yeah, I've never heard a word that way. That was
Yeah.
slick. But he brings him a gun and gets all mad because the dad won't fire it off. And he's like, "It's Christmas. We're about to eat dinner. Like, dude, chill out."
Right.
And he's like, "Okay, sorry."
Sorry.
So
and
then
Carrie is in a bad way.
and
Like,
Kevin has this talk with him. He's like, "Are you okay?"
yeah. And
You
he's
know.
like, yeah, I'm fine.
Carrie-
You know,
yeah.
I think the
Getting pretty good at knowing what it looks like when one of my brothers is about to die.
Seriously.
well, he says.
though.
I mean, they're talking on the phone, and Kevin has said he's like, what he kept saying is like about how brave Chris was for doing what he did, and how strong and how much balls it took to do that. And Kevin's like, hey man,
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
Right.
Like, just tell me where you are. I'll come get you. And I think Kevin.
You're talking about in the movie would be Mike, right? Chris isn't in the movie.
Sorry. Well, no, because Mike takes the drugs. But the conversation, the real life conversation between
Okay,
Kevin and
the real
Carrie,
life,
the real
okay.
life is that Carrie was like, basically
Got it.
saying how strong Chris was for shooting himself.
Got it. I got it.
And Carrie, I think,
I like when
tells,
he calls and he goes, "Oh, I'm glad you're still up." It was just kind of this like dark humor, but like Zac Efron's getting out of bed trying to be quiet, not to wake the wife up.
Right.
Oh, good, I'm glad you're up.
I'm
He's
glad
like,
you're
yeah,
up.
I'm up. I'm up. But it's horrible. Yeah, he's just like he's talking like he's gonna end it all.
Yeah, I think he says, I'm gonna go to the ranch. So Kevin calls the ranch and talks to Fritz. He's like, hey, Carrie's coming up there. You need to like keep him there because I'm coming. And Fritz
says, "You boys need to work it out."
But in real life, Fritz is like he's like laying concrete on the
Right.
ranch, and he doesn't pay any attention to it. So
yeah, in real life, he says, "I gotta call you back." He
Right.
doesn't, whatever. But yeah, in the movie, narrative wise, he says, "You boys have to work it out." Again, this thing that he commonly does throughout the film, where he's just got this thing where he's like, "I'm not gonna step in and do anything."
they
You
have
guys-
that moment with Kevin and Maura Tierney where he's like, "Hey, can you tell Dad to back off Mike?" And she's like, "That's between you." Like
Yeah,
even
man. I think after losing her
All of
oldest
them?
son.
Yeah.
No, I think from the beginning. I think because
from
that
Jack?
cold moment is in the very beginning when none of the others had died yet. She just like she's cold from the beginning, and I think losing Jack Jr. really screwed her up.
Probably.
And so that's what they're showing, like this woman, and that scene when she has to put on the same black dress, and she's like, "I can't, people will notice," is heartbreaking. That's a really good scene.
It's a very good
and
scene.
Lily James is comforting her and saying like, "It's okay. You need, no one's gonna
You'll be
care
okay."
about that, whatever." But heartbreaking. I mean, this woman has lost so many kids that she hasn't had time to buy a new black dress.
Right,
Like,
right.
Yeah. But anyway, so
he
goes to the ranch.
He goes to the
Kevin
ranch.
goes to the ranch, sees a car parked, door
he
open,
sees Carrie's car
runs into the house, doors open to the house,
and he hears a gunshot. And I was in this moment, I was just like, I know what's gonna happen. I know how all of these brothers died.
Yeah.
I think we
know-
all do at this point
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
right? Like,
They changed this a little bit. Kevin does not find Carrie. It's Fritz that finds Carrie.
Kevin found Chris,
Yes.
like we were saying earlier.
Correct. And there's a moment where Kevin snaps and he goes after Fritz and he's like, "You did this. This is on you." And Fritz immediately blames Kevin, like, "You should have helped him. You should have done whatever."
God, this dad is so horrible. I mean, he was such a horrible person.
He's the worst. It's a character choice where he gets worse. Like, I don't think he's that bad.
I
It's
think
there,
he's
right? It's
always
under the surface.
He's bad, but he gets more and more selfish as his chances diminish, right? Like,
That's what it's
once
about.
he realizes the belt's never going to come home or whatever, like,
Yeah.
he gets desperate.
Yeah,
and he
it
gets
came
worse.
home for 18 days.
Yeah, but he's horrible from the beginning. The fact that he dragged all his sons and forced them, and Mike and Chris, who was 5'5", like the fact that this guy would, to keep this dynasty going, to bring champions home,
Yeah.
would do this to his kids. I mean, he's awful.
Yes, he was awful. Not as awful as Grizzly Smith. If you out there, YouTube,
don't know
maybe
Grizzlies.
Google. It's Jake the Snake's dad.
Oh,
Google that guy.
Mm.
It's bad. That's real bad. This is a very weird scene.
I thought he was gonna kill the dad, and like not knowing the story. I'm
Yeah,
like,
not
is that
knowing the
how-
story, I was like, "Oh, does he kill the
But he
dad?"
goes
This
to
is
jail
how
for
it
murder,
ends.
yeah.
No. Oh
jeez.
man, that would have been one hell of an ending.
But
to a
he
movie.
almost strangles him to death and then lets off, which I
Right.
think we were all like relieved that he got that outlet because this guy's awful.
Yeah, right.
But he did kill him.
There is this weird scene where Carrie picks up Kevin's body.
Kevin picks up Carrie. Yeah.
What did I say? Did I say the opposite?
yeah. That would be a weird
That's
one.
another weird way to end the movie. And he lays him down on the table, and he has this moment. He's holding his hand, and we flash to Carrie walking, on the grass. He's got both of his
I like
feet.
it. He jumps, his foot's back.
Yeah, and he sees. I think this is a brilliant choice.
He crosses over, puts
Worst
the coin.
scene in the movie.
Oh,
I
oh no,
liked
I
it.
think it was
No.
great. I think the
It's
way they did it.
Bad scene. It's and I will do one better. It's an irresponsible scene.
What do you mean?
Because anyone watching this movie who might be struggling with suicide that sees this scene it's
I see what you're saying.
It is a bad and irresponsible scene in this movie.
I see that argument.
Like
Absolutely, I do.
Yeah, it is. I get that they're wanting to try and give some sort of happy ending for these brothers,
Right.
But like, I just the way it was displayed, I just thought
I could absolutely
It
understand
was-
that. Well, you're
I
not
didn't see
wrong
it from that angle,
right?
That's,
Because
it's a valid point.
Carrie's not on drugs. He's healthy.
Yeah.
He gets his foot back. He sees David with the world championship around his waist.
Yeah.
He sees Mike rocking a guitar.
Yeah.
So like everybody
And
is perfect.
not
Not
brain damaged.
Not brain damaged.
Right.
Yeah. I
But
see
yeah,
what you're
I mean,
saying.
I do feel that's irresponsible in a way. I totally get that. But what they're trying to do is this family went through so much hell. It's like, good Lord, but at least, to think somewhere there. I mean, people say this stuff all the time. I'll see you again. You're in, they're just
for
doing
sure,
that
but
thing. It's-
to have it visually
Yeah.
spelled out for you like that, especially when it's essentially instantaneous.
Sure.
That it's like, oh, if you
Yeah.
shoot yourself,
Yeah,
you
that-
will instantly get your foot back, reunite with your loved ones. Well,
Your brothers will be happy.
who wouldn't take that?
That's
feat?
fair.
Like,
I
right?
mean,
Like
yeah,
that's
I get that.
No,
But
I don't disagree at all.
I liked the he puts the coin down. It's like passing over on the
it's the
river
It's
Styx.
paying the ferryman.
Paying the
Yeah,
ferryman.
I liked the metaphor of it and everything. But yeah,
But I
see
don't
that.
disagree. I never thought of it that way, but you're absolutely right. I think you're totally right.
Now does it flash forward to him and the boys? Zach, is it? This is
Yeah,
kinda
so
how it ends, right?
he sells. We see him sitting down with Jerry Jarrett and selling the promotion, and then it's him with Lily James and the boys are playing. And I don't like it when people say this broke me, XYZ broke me.
Yeah.
Whatever. This is like the most gut wrenching thing.
Why don't you like that when people say that?
I just think it's overused.
Yeah.
I think people use it all the
Oh,
time.
well, yeah, it's just shorthand for it's seen wrecked me. Yeah,
But
it's
this, so Kevin
this
is
got
he's
me to tear up.
He's
This
sitting
is-
there watching his boys play football, and he starts crying. And the boys come over and they're like, "What's the matter?" He's like, "I used to be a brother, and now
well,
I'm not."
no, but it's a little more subtle than that.
Oh, no, it
but,
is,
But I
but
just,
I'm not gonna try to-
But what I'll say, because I just want to do justice to it, he's crying. He's like, "I'm sorry, boys. You shouldn't see me crying. A man shouldn't cry."
Yeah.
And the two boys go, "That's okay. You can cry. We cry all the time." Like it's so refreshing. This is an important message,
Very much
to
so.
send to people, especially in like a macho world. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, yeah.
the world of wrestling. I'm not trying to be derogatory. I'm just saying.
No, there's
Muscles
a
and macho and be a man and
there's
all
a
that.
toxic masculinity,
Right?
attached to it.
Absolutely, there is.
Yeah.
Like this
And-
is when people talk about it. Like when like masculinity's fine. It's like okay, but there's a
There's a line.
There's a qualifying adjective attached to the word masculinity.
Right.
And so
right. Yeah.
it's just so well written in the way the kids say, "It's fine, Dad. You can cry. We cry all the time." And they go, "Do you know why you're crying?" And he's like, "Well, I guess it's just that I used to be,
I used to be a brother, and now I'm not.
and now I'm not a brother anymore." And they go, "We'll be your brothers."
Off.
And then he's crying and he's "Thank you, boys." And then they
Yeah.
go and have a catch.
And that's how it ends. And that's how
It's
it
a beautiful
ends,
moment.
is-
And Kevin tells the story in an interview, and he used to say that he's like, that I wasn't a brother anymore. And I just think the way that they wove that into the writing and ended it on that beautiful moment like
Yeah.
that, it was really well done.
I'd be like, well, brothers don't pay each other allowance. so
so sorry, boys.
Tom's
Yeah.
just thinking of all the ways like that wouldn't work out.
I'm trying to think if there's anything that they see.
The post-credit scene where Ric Flair
Yeah,
comes
right,
out
right,
and goes,
right. Okay. So Gino Hernandez, we talked about earlier. He's the first guy that Mike and Kevin wrestle in the beginning of the movie. He dies in '86. So and then Bruiser Brody dies in '88. So World Class is dealing with all of these deaths at the same time.
But Kevin and Pam were married for 40-something
Still,
years.
yeah.
So
That's
cool.
rare in wrestling.
I think
That's rare in life.
That's true.
But when you see
Tell me
the
about
fact that Kevin does have the happy ending and that he gets to grow up with his kids, and then they show you in real life that he got a ranch, I guess it's a different
So what
ranch.
happens is, honestly,
he built the life he wanted.
He
Yeah.
did,
Right.
but they move. They
what I mean.
they
It's a
leave
different-
Texas.
yeah.
In real life, they were Kevin was like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
he picked up his family and they moved to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Like that's
Oh, it's
for real.
Hawaii?
Yeah.
Okay, so but it's like, and he did the thing that in the beginning he joked about. They wrote it into the story. He's like, hey, we can build a huge home and have all the family come live there. And they show a picture of like he and his kids and their kids, his grandkids,
Yep.
are all living on this ranch. And you watch interviews with him, watch the Vice thing, and he's just like in the beautiful nature. And
I think they
ducks walking around.
I think they just moved back to Texas.
Oh,
Like
okay.
just recently.
Oh,
I
interesting.
think. Yeah, because they're okay. So just a few of the names that went through the WCCW at one point: Ric Flair, the Great Muta, for hardcore wrestling fans, Michael P.S. Hayes, Steve Austin, Mick Foley, Rick Rude, the Ultimate Warrior, the Undertaker. Like a lot of those Texas-based guys all went through WCCW, the World Class Championship Wrestling. Yeah. So, fun fact, when Bill Mercer and Kevin are talking in the office, and there's those two guys that are wrestling in the ring. That's Ross and Marshall Von Erich.
Oh.
Like those are Kevin's sons.
Oh,
those
yeah.
those are the boys. The boys now wrestle. They were just on TV for AEW.
Wow.
Kevin was on TV. Like they were out
Oh,
there
because
together.
AEW is like a commercial, right?
Kind
They
of
do those things
I mean,
where they.
but I mean the boys are legit wrestlers.
Oh,
Like,
I
they're a
know.
tag team.
But you mean to promote this movie? They did a.
No. They wrestled. They brought them in to work some matches and see where
Oh
they were
no!
at.
I know they really wrestle. I'm saying they were just on to promote this movie.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
yes,
what I'm saying.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Because
Absolutely.
I've heard AEW is getting in hot water because it's turned into a commercial. They do these
Sometimes.
silly bits.
Yeah, they had a Texas Chainsaw Massacre match. Like that's the
It's
kind of
horrible.
Yeah.
I know WWF has done some
Yeah,
promotional things.
they had the
but-
Mountain Dew pitch black match.
Yeah,
like,
but I'm
come
just
on.
saying, like, I know, but these AEW ones I've seen clips from, like, good lord.
But so those are Kevin's sons.
Yeah.
Carrie had two daughters. Lacey, who had like a cup of coffee. She was in the business for very short. And another daughter who has stayed away from wrestling altogether until just recently.
Oh.
She started doing some interviews about the family and stuff like that. The other things I did want to talk about, just real quick, just things you can watch. Like if you're interested in this family, we did talk about it's Dark Side of the Ring season 2. The Von Erichs is what that one is. WWE did a documentary on the promotion, which is pretty much all this is. It's called the Triumph and Tragedy of WCCW. There's also, like I said, you can go online. All of these matches that they reference and they show you are real. So you can see Ric Flair versus Kerry Von Erich. If you look up,
You can see him versus Kevin.
yeah. But the three that I will reference is Kerry versus Jerry Lawler from Super Clash 3. Kevin versus Ric Flair from April of '83. And then there's a bunch of other. The Parade of Champions is the big one. If you just look, it's 1984 is when that happens. So that's all on YouTube. Like I don't know how that happened because I thought Vince bought the library, but I guess not. So all of that stuff is out there. The one match I will say is the Pride of Champions, and then the Super Clash 3 is kind of one of the better Kerry Von Erich. He tears his bicep like 5 minutes into the match, and then it is a blood and guts match because Kerry is just leaking blood all over the place. But it gives you an idea. He has no foot, and it gives you an idea of how good he was.
Man, I mean, we didn't even talk about that scene where Efron goes over the top rope and then lands on the concrete. He gets like a suplexed on the concrete. And he's like, that wasn't even supposed to happen. And first, it's like, that's how they test you. That's how they see if you can get through it. And he can barely even get in the ring before the 10 count.
Right.
And that's where he gets the
Also, the fact that
qualifying.
Fritz kind of gives him crap for that, and I was like, well, also he barely makes it in. It's drama, baby.
You're supposed to barely make it
Yeah,
in.
But I
Yeah,
think
you
it was
don't-
but he almost had that, like, that's foreshadowing for the thing where
Yeah.
he gets disqualified, where it's like he almost didn't and then would lose the shot.
Yes,
so.
correct. I think this is probably too late for Oscar contention.
I don't think so. No.
No?
We didn't get it in time for like local awards voting, but it's out there for
I think you
Oscars.
got to put him. You got to put Efron up.
Yeah.
I think he should be nominated for Best Actor.
Yeah,
I think
it's good. I think people are going to dismiss this because it's wrestling, but the Rotten Tomato scores is 90-something%. The audience scores 90-something. I mean, this is a great film. It's like with Moneyball that we talked about. You don't have to care
For
about
sure.
wrestling. There's a lot of wrestling in it, but I think it
It's not
looks
the
real.
it's not the focal point.
But it
Yeah.
looks real. They did a good job with the wrestling. Like you said, they had people on it that obviously knew their stuff. It's interesting to watch, but it's about the family dynamic more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this was a really good movie. Yeah, I enjoyed it as much as you could enjoy this story because it's an awful story. Yeah. So anyway, I guess that's it for this one. Let's go around the table and everyone can say where to find them.
This is Joe. You can follow me on the Twitter at JoeyButts, BUTTS21, and also on Letterboxd at the same.
And on Binge Movies for this
And
special.
on Binge Movies, yeah. It's I mean, like we didn't intend for it to go 4 hours, and then I looked at the clock and I was just like, oh no.
The question is, did you record it?
Yes.
Oh, phew.
Yes.
Okay.
I learned my lesson.
This is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at Kevin R. Brackett.
And this is Tom. You can follow me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online at facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. And, of course, don't forget our Patreon at patreon.com/Real Spoilers. So that's it for this one. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, Mary and Andy elope.
Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, 'cause we